welcome to a Photoshop cutout example. We'll have a class that deals with this, but for now I'm going to show you a suggested method, and this is probably my favorite and top method, and it's the method I use on my YouTube channel for making the covers of my thumbnails. So this is one thumbnail that already exists, and I was making a new one, so I thought I'd show you. You see the cutout that's on the left. It's kind of a popular look for YouTube thumbnails this year and last. So it's commonly used very small. So you can see when I make it a lot smaller, it's the fonts that matter here, but hey, everyone wants to see a face. So I have already taken a screen cap, just a plain old screen cap of a still image from my video. Any photo will do. You can see that I've got this arranged in layers. So I'm clicking through some of the layers to show you what's on top and behind. If you hide things, same as moving things, you get an idea where things sit. So my image had been on the very top level. So we're going to import a photo. It's placed embedded so that it is a part of this file and not a linked image. So it will become part of this file entirely. So I'm moving it up to the top after it's been placed, and I've just placed it anywhere because we're going to go in with a different tool, the pen tool, and trace around it. You don't need to be any sort of artist to do this. Having good vision or zooming in will help, that's for sure. So you take the pen tool and you click where you want to begin. I find beginning on the right works for me. After a couple cutouts, you'll develop techniques that work for you. If you hold down the shift key, it doesn't matter where you click, it's going to draw a straight line. That is key to having a nice, neat looking finished product. And depending on what magazine or newspaper you're working on, they may require that. So we'll just use the shift key to do the first one. Now on subsequent clicks, what we're going to do is click and drag. So I click where I want the next curve to be. Looking at the image, you can sort of see where all the little curves will be. You click and you draw and drag along the curve. So where the curve changes, you follow that trajectory onto the next curve. You saw me draw a little circle and delete it. Command Z is your friend, or Command or Control Z for undo. It's very handy. You can also use the arrow keys to adjust a spot. If you don't like where you've clicked, you can just tap the arrow key to the left or right to move it around. So I'm just clicking and dragging along the curves of the shoulder. And when you get to a corner, you can click once and just continue on. So I'm clicking around the head. I mean, this gets tricky with curly hair when you get into a spot. If you're ever a photo editor and you're cutting out curly hair, you will wish everyone had this hairstyle. This is exactly why I have straight hair for cutouts, right? So I just click and drag down. When I get to this corner, I'm going to just click once. It will create a sharp turn. The Bezier curve, this is what the pen tool is basically drawing as a Bezier curve. You can Google that. It was developed for making industrial designs of cars. So you can understand how these curves and sharp corners are really inherent in car design. Not so much in people design, but it does a really good job. This is just the first step in creating the selection for our cutout. But the pen tool, I find, is just one of the best techniques for getting a quick and easy cutout by simply clicking and dragging along the line. You can try this with a pen or like a tablet if you like, and stylus. I'm just using a mouse here, and it's working just fine. A stylus gives you a lot more control. You can also hit the caps lock key to give a crosshairs. So there's my cutout. And what I've done is gone into the paths layer. So instead of layers, you go into paths tab and it shows you all the paths. And the path name is automatically generated as work path. You can type in whatever path name you like, but just double clicking and hitting OK will automatically name it the next one in series. So this is the pen path. What I want to do is make it a selection. If you click away, you haven't lost it. It saves all these paths. You can see all the former paths, different face shapes. So we will right click and choose make selection. This gives it what people call the marching ants, or a selection halo, or a marquee. And we're going to refine this by going to select, refine, and mask and select, or whatever it is. It depends on your version of Creative Cloud or your old version of Adobe. These are just some different backgrounds. I'm going to look at it on white because I'm typically bringing it in on a light color. If you need to do a cutout on a dark destination, use dark. If you're doing this cutout for green screen, I suggest red, but the white works fine. The flow, or the, oh, what do we call this here? The feather will give you a fuzzy edge. Instead of that hard edge or a really bad feathered edge, what we want is something like 1 or 2. It really just gives enough of a haze so that we can put it into a background and look a little more realistic. You can shift the edge if you've done a really bad job, bring it in a little bit, or if you're dealing with something like a light glare or someone has a colored light behind them, you can easily bring this in just a little bit. Or if you want to capture some of that background because you bring it into a similar background, you can do that. We did an okay job for this purpose here, so I've only applied a little tiny bit of everything. A little goes a long way, right? So we just copied this by going to Edit Copy or Command C. I prefer keyboard shortcuts all the time. So you've deselected this, but since we've copied it, we can just simply remove this layer entirely. You can hide it if you want to save it for later. Some people save every step. I've just gotten this down to a science. So when we go to paste this, it's just going to paste the cutout that we've copied. You can back up and double check to see if you've missed anything here and see what key commands I've used. But if you're following along, this is pretty straightforward. You copied your selection, you pasted it. So now we've moved it. We can change it by doing Command T or transform under the image transform or edit transform. And you can just resize it. Holding down Shift will ensure that you don't make it any longer, shorter, skinnier, fatter, or whatever. So we've got this on a particular layer. If you were to move these layers around, you could put it under the text. It depends on your application. You've seen some magazines where the cutout of the person goes over the name. This is basically how they do that. Or if you want some of the text over top of the person, it's simply a matter of moving what layers. I mean, that's a pretty good look. That's an even better look. I'm shady. Oh, see ya later. Bye. So anyway, yeah, this is typically what I use for the YouTube thumbnails, and it is, as you've seen on YouTube, if you've ever been on YouTube, you'll see very similar cutouts like this. And of course, people who put like a white outline, you'll learn that eventually. Of course, that's pretty simple. So we're just saving it as a JPEG. If you click over to the right and pick up the name of another file, it will take the appendix as well. So we're just changing it in format to the format we want, and that will automatically name your file .jpeg. And that's pretty much it. Looks very similar. Yep, there we are. That is how we use a template, basically, to create very similar looking images too. So that's cutouts, and thank you very much for watching.